Great day, amazing humans. Yes, welcome to Empowering Bytes. This is where we keep it short and sweet. But who is the we? Well, the we is me and KG, and
I'm Gabby with 1B. Pleased to be the co-host of these Empowering Bytes where we keep it short and sweet.
E to the A to the B to the what? Mamone! That is Gabby 1B Mamone. Let's go, girl. Let the show begin. Great day, amazing humans. Yippee, yippee, yay, yay, yes. Oh, Lord Inkichi, you're so crazy. Anyway, I am so awesome today, and I'm not alone. I'm here with an Empowering Bites episode, joined by my amazing and fabulous co-host of 3 years now? 4 years?
3 years, 4 years, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, 4 years, I guess, right? And yes, Gabriella Mamone, my girl, my friend, my amazing, amazing coach sometimes, therapist sometimes.
We
But
share the same love.
all things Gabby 1B from
Uh,
Mamone. I love it. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you, Nkichi. Well, today we're going to tackle a topic that's maybe tough for some, but it's worth mentioning and worth discussing about because we all deal with difficult people. Whether it's a toxic coworker or a challenging family member or anyone in between, we thought it would be nice if we discuss some practical strategies on how to navigate these tricky interactions. So, what do you say? Shall we jump right
I
in it?
think we jump right in. I think it's a good one because, and it's so funny because I think we'll have to give some context because for everyone, a difficult person can mean different things, right? And
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of people that are really great at this. So their level of difficult is, you know, different than somebody who hasn't necessarily, who's maybe not even exposed to this or just has
Mm,
never really doubled down on how to deal with it and is just constantly constantly doing the best that they can. And
yeah.
or maybe we're the difficult people. But anyway, we'll give it context. We'll give it context. So that you get it started.
Yeah, for sure. So when you think about people, when you interact with people, sometimes you get like a sinking feeling when you have to interact with someone.
Hmm.
Why is that? That could be something
Hmm.
about their presence or
Hmm.
something that maybe hinders you. You feel like you're unable to thrive because of that interaction. And so we really, really want to discuss it because let's be real, there are some people in this world that are difficult, but you
Hmm.
don't have to let them ruin your day, right? So let's unpack some strategies and talk about some of the personalities because we believe in thriving. That's what this podcast is all about is thriving. And so,
And
let's
this is the year of
reclaim our
flourishing, so
sanity.
we want you to flourish in all of your conversations. And
Exactly,
you know I'm going in if
absolutely.
I'm taking out my notebook because
Yeah. Right. 'Cause we
I'm
don't need to be walking on eggshells with people. I know sometimes we feel like we have to, but if you dread interactions, this is the podcast for you because we want to help you navigate through this tricky situation of dealing with difficult people because they're here and we need to be
hmm
able to manage them. Right. So let's first start a little bit about chatting a little bit about, what can you do to have confidence and deal with a difficult person?
hmm
How do you take back your
Well, I
power?
don't.
Let's
I'm gonna.
discuss.
I'm gonna have confidence. I'm gonna say maybe it's also. I'm gonna say because I always say courage trumps confidence. I think confidence is more something that people observe more so than sometimes you feel. So I don't
Yeah.
want somebody to feel that you got to feel confident going into a conversation. I
Mm,
think you need to choose to be courageous and brave to have
yeah.
it and then hopefully the tips and the tricks that we'll share from our experiences just something, and by all means there's so many people that thought leaders that speak about this, so do some research. There's a lot
Yeah.
of great books and podcasts and articles out there about this, and so I encourage everyone to dive in because sometimes you're the difficult person, right? But so it's all
Right.
around. I think it's all around it's all around framing, right? Like something's not difficult until you frame it as difficult. So,
Mm,
maybe we're framing, but how about we say those challenging conversations, those conversations, like you said, that tend to that raise some type of physiological change within us, right?
yeah.
Like you know it, you feel it, right? Yeah.
For sure. And I also think it's important before we dive in to
Hmm.
address that it's important to choose your battles wisely because sometimes butting heads with a difficult person isn't the best solution here.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
okay sometimes if you have to walk away and assess the relationship that you have with them because,
Hmm.
if it's your boss or another authority figure, maybe you don't need to accept certain things, or maybe
Hmm.
you do need to accept certain things. Maybe it's a family member, a friend. So you really want to assess each person and each situation individually and decide if it's even necessary for you to engage in that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's first chat a little bit about three ways. What are
Okay.
three ways that we feel that are practical of how we can handle difficult people? So let's start with the first one.
Okay. What's the first one?
You want me to say?
Yeah, of course.
Uh,
I'm like, I took out my notebook.
okay, cool.
What's the
All right. So the first is don't take it personally,
Oh
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Sometimes people project their own issues, and we've all heard it before. You need to respond, not to react. We want to make sure that we stay in integrity in the face of negativity. Sometimes people simply just want to vent. Sometimes they just want to say their own views, but the reality is it's not an attack on you, so it's imperative to not take it personally.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
want to take a look at it because maybe the behavior is contributing to an outside circumstance that you're not even aware of, right?
Mhm.
So you want to be willing to acknowledge what they're saying and
Mhm.
truly, truly listen, but
Mhm.
not take it from a personal perspective. Now,
Mhm.
like you said at the beginning of the call, perhaps we are the difficult people. Maybe
Mhm.
we're just not seeing it from their
Mhm.
perspective. The same rule applies is don't take it personally, but truly
Mhm.
we need to absolutely listen in a scenario like that and truly
Mhm.
understand where they're coming from.
Mhm.
What are
I
your
think
thoughts
there's
on that?
Yeah, I think there's something I was in a talk the other day, and it was actually we were talking about the imposter phenomenon, and you know what I feel about the imposter.
Yeah,
Anyway, won't say it, but
that's a different discussion.
and I opened it up by saying that the one thing that all of us in this room, right? Because it was a room, there was male, there was females, and I said the one thing that we actually all share is that we are human beings, right? Like
Yeah.
it's we are, regardless of what you identify with or this, that, and the other, we are actually still all human beings. And as a result, everything that we are navigating in this life is a human experience. And
Hmm.
so I share that because to your point about maybe where I think going into any type of, I think you will always have a better ability of project or presenting your best self and navigating that experience. If you stay if you stay in that human space where you recognize that if we're all if we're all human, then we're all imperfect. We all have best intentions for the most part, right? We all have had experiences. We all have lives that we're trying to navigate. And on any given day, there are different things that are present
Hmm.
that each of us are having to work through in a very personal way. So depersonalizing somebody else's behavior or somebody else's approach or demeanor
Ugh,
is
yes.
so important because you're not their human. You are
Yes.
your human. And
Yes.
so recognizing that, giving them grace, not personalizing it, not thinking that it's something that they're doing deliberately to you, right?
Mhm.
Is in my opinion is more for you than it is for them because it's to keep you in the seat of your own power, not to lose power. Because once you start to
Yeah.
personalize, then essentially you're depleting your power, And
Right.
so
And yeah, I agree. And you are not responsible for other people's feelings or actions. You're not.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. Your
Their
response is your
opinions,
responsibility,
exactly.
not theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, their opinions and behaviors do not define your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because if we were to take it personally, it really can lead to unnecessary stress,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not necessary to use our essential energy for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Essentially, not taking it personally is about cultivating a sense
Mm-hmm.
of emotional detachment.
I agree. And control.
It'll,
And control. It's sort of dealing with what you know is within your control. And within your control is your breathing, how you're making sure that you're for, and if you feel that any of those are not possible for you in the moment, well, guess what? And maybe that's where we're going into number two. I think
yes,
about boundaries.
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
number two is boundaries.
Yeah. So
And that's,
essentially, to
yeah,
sum it up with don't take it personally, is it's about cultivating a sense of emotional detachment.
right.
So it allows you to navigate interactions with greater clarity and resilience.
Yes.
Okay. So that's number one. Don't take it personally.
Hmm.
Number two is setting up and upholding boundaries.
Hmm.
Okay. So we all know the importance of setting boundaries, but the reality is I love a saying, and it is kind to be clear. And
Okay, I
so
like that. It's
it
kind to be
is.
clear.
It's
Yeah.
kind to be clear. And so
Hmm.
set the boundaries, be clear, be assertive, say no, don't have guilt, right?
Hmm.
These are very, very important things because what it will do is it will protect your self well-being.
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
boundaries are like a shield, right? So
Hmm.
it protects people from encroaching in your own personal space or sucking up your emotional energy.
Hmm.
And the reality is I actually think it'll create more respect because they know how you expect to be treated. It's a
Right.
foundation of mutual respect. And
Right.
so yeah, like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. What I was saying coming out of like not taking it personally,
Yeah.
I think there also comes a time where if you recognize that you've done like you've exercised all the techniques to not take it personally, and still you're feeling that there's like way too much resistance happening in this experience, then I think that that's where you get into setting boundaries, which is it is actually within your right to say that you are not equipped or ready or desiring to to have that interaction or to be in this connection or this
Mm,
right now, right? Doesn't mean forever, but for right now, you know that it's best for you to exit, to ask for a pause, to, just say, let's come back to this.
mhm.
We've maybe circled the wagon enough. I think that's another thing too, in a in conversations. I think in setting boundaries, like it's not about trying to figure like setting boundaries so that there's a win in it for you. I don't think I think we are better served not going into conversations
Mm,
um with an objective to win,
yes.
right? But more of an objective to seek to and maybe we're getting to another tip, but it's more just like you don't have to go in for the win. I think there might be something that needs to be solved maybe in that particular, and it could happen in different phases, if especially if there is time to do it. And maybe this one is just to get to some kind of alignment, you know, um, get to some type of understanding of where the parties in the conversation are sort of situated relative
Yeah.
to like getting to, some type of agreement or some working solution. And that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
I
You kind of just, it's like a slow cooker, right? You kind of just
yeah.
marinate it in that first conversation, and then be okay to say, I'm going to leave the rest, you
Yeah.
know?
I absolutely love that. And there's different ways to use boundaries. Like, I'll tell you candidly, I worked with someone once who really loves stepping over my boundaries or trying to, sucking my time with words, emotional, mental. But from that, I'm very grateful because I learned some strategies. And the first is, from an emotional perspective, it's okay to say, I'm not willing to discuss this topic,
Mm-hmm.
or I will not tolerate you yelling at me, or I need some space right now. That's perfectly
Mm-hmm.
fine to do. That's a boundary. And then if
Mm-hmm.
there's someone that's trying to use your time, you can set that boundary. I have a
Mm-hmm.
hard stop at this time, or I can only talk for 15 minutes, or I need to prioritize my time right now. Whatever that looks like for you, state your boundary. That's key,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if someone's in a situation where there's a physical boundary,
Mm-hmm.
you could say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not comfortable with physical contact, or please ask
Mm-hmm.
before picking up my
Mm-hmm.
cell phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, please don't stand so close to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with saying that because you're stating your boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, we've all been in situations where, bless you, we've been in
No, I didn't sneeze. I
situations.
was going to say
Oh,
something.
oh, I thought you sneezed. Well, bless you anyway. Bless
Thank you.
you anyway, girl. I love you. The last one I would say is mental boundaries from a perspective of boundaries, because they relate to your thoughts, your opinions, your beliefs. And so it's perfectly fine to say, I won't participate in
Mm-hmm.
gossip, or I
Mm-hmm.
will not allow you to put your
Mm-hmm.
beliefs onto me, or I
Mm-hmm.
have a different opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to leave it at that. These are
Yeah.
all ways to protect your boundaries. So please go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that as we talk about this, I recognize that in some cases, this is going to be with the further removed the person is from you, the easier that some of what we're sharing is. But we're talking about sometimes that these are family, they're friendships,
Sure.
and but I will say, like, just from experience, there are like relationships that are that close where if you start to do that sort of assessment as to how you feel when you get out of some of those interactions and you're not feeling like you're in a position of empowerment, you're not feeling like, that was just a great experience, then I would say that might be a relationship that does need boundaries, irrespective
Ah,
of what they are to you.
yeah,
And I just say, I just encourage everyone to know that that is actually also okay to reposition yourself, or others in your life, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah. One thing I always used to say, um, and this one hit close to home for me, is that not every relationship is meant to compete against a Duracell battery.
Ah,
And I used to say that a lot. Especially when because sometimes as you start to navigate life and you start to grow and you learn and and especially if you're working on trying to just be better and get out of like old habits that were toxic or unhealthy habits, right? I would say people are a part of that as well. And so
Mm,
it's also realizing that sometimes I think we feel that some relationships are in our lives forever. And I certainly, just losing people, you and I have lost really dear people to us, and
mhm,
nothing is forever. And that includes friendships, right? Like, and
mhm,
so, and family ships, right? And so, there's also, I think, an honest need for us to also evaluate that inventory and be okay to say there's some of those folks that also need to be repositioned.
mm. I really appreciate you saying that, because my brand and my business is kindness. When I'm coaching someone, for example, how to speak, and if they want to be in my coaching program, I'm very, very particular about who is actually accepted into that program. Because if they're just doing it for the money, that's great, but not for me. That's not a fit.
Hmm.
But if they're doing it for the purpose of helping others and
Mm,
using their voice for impact, then we are a fit.
mhm,
And so there's a difference between being nice and being kind,
mhm,
right?
mm,
Being nice is like socially agreeable,
mm,
whereas kind is more of a deeper concern for others,
mhm,
involving
mhm,
helpful and compassionate
mhm,
action. So when
mhm,
we bring that back to boundaries, there can't be any guilt or
mhm.
fear of upsetting
That's
others,
right.
because ultimately we need to set our boundaries in order to understand that we have to protect our energy, and that's how
Yes,
we navigate the situations. Really,
I
we have.
agree. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. So let's
Mhm,
move to the third one. The third strategy for dealing with difficult people is seek to understand, not win.
Mm,
Now, you touched on this already a little
mhm,
earlier,
mhm,
and this is incredibly powerful when you're talking with and to difficult people because it shifts the focus from being like adversarial conflict to a more collaborative approach. Okay.
mhm,
And even if collaboration seems impossible, it actually can apply strongly if you're using the concepts correctly. So, what you want to do is you want to shift the goal. So instead of aiming to win the argument or prove your point or I'm right, and even if you disagree, what's important is you want to actively listen
mhm,
because by actively listening, you're really identifying what the other person is saying, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Like, have you ever
mhm.
been in a conversation where you're speaking? The moment you take a deep breath, a pause, that's when they interject. And then it's
Yeah,
like, did you really just hear everything I just said before that breath? Or were you
yeah.
waiting for my pause to interject? So the active listening is really, really important. And so what that also helps with now is validation and empathy, because what you can do is see the situation from their point of view.
Mhm,
Acknowledge their feelings. You don't have to agree with them. No. But acknowledging and really having empathy for their side is very,
mhm,
very important because that also helps to reduce any conflict or any heaviness that the
mhm,
conversation could actually have.
mhm.
And if you really truly don't understand and you need more context, then ask them, encourage them to elaborate
Yeah.
on their thoughts, their feelings, because you really want to gain a deeper understanding of their perspective. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on this, Ink?
Yeah, well, I think it's to tie into what I was saying earlier. I think what I'll add is you know, don't go into conversations thinking it's finite, right? It's just it's transient. Like you're gonna get it to like I think there's certain language you can even use like if you recognize it's a difficult conversation, if in the process you realize that it's bigger and you're having to like, okay, let's just take a pause and
Yeah,
get to some type, what can we agree on today?
yeah.
And so we can agree on that we have a challenge. We can agree on that this is bigger of a problem that we thought. Like try to find the points of agreement that even
Mm,
two disagreeable people can still figure out. I think that that's possible. Like even if I hate to say we agree to disagree, I don't like that at all, but
yeah.
we agree that there's something that needs to we're opposing ends. And so do we bring in a third party, right? Do we go and do some research, come back together? Do we maybe, I don't know, if you can, do we agree that we're gonna park the situation,
Hmm.
right? Like and just walk away like and move on from it, you know? But I think there's that. I think you also don't think about it so finite, like the whole
Mm,
win that whole win thing. There's something, and I don't know if I'm gonna quote this well, but it says, seek to understand, not to be understood,
mm.
right?
Yes.
Because I do think still in the space of understanding someone, you can you actually end up being in this place of empowerment that once they realize that you're there to really understand how they feel, they will in turn become more accepting of your like sort of your thoughts around the topic. I truly do believe that, right? And
Yeah.
so and I think something else I once heard, and understanding is the truth we stand under, you know?
Oh,
And so I think at the end of the day, intrinsically in every human, there's this desire to be understood. And so if you're the person that has to do the understanding,
mm.
then yeah, I think Michelle Obama says when they go low, you go high. Like I stay high. I
Yeah.
think in
Stay
every
high.
conversation, it's not, and when I mean high, not like higher than the person, but stay in your high thoughts, stay in your high spirit, stay in your
Yeah.
high energy, stay high in the sense that you know that this you want to make this better. You want
Yeah.
this situation to rise. You want it to uplift. You want people to leave. What is it that Hannah and you say? You want people to leave this experience in the space of increase. Like you want
Yeah.
to add value. You want to, you know what I mean? You want to add life. You want to, so if you kind of try to say that, you know what, in every conversation or situation, I'm going to leave it better than when I found it. You
Mm.
give yourself a little bit of grace and responsibility to maybe figure out and navigate how to. work through this so
Yeah.
that, as best as possible, the best outcome for as many people, for the, highest good for as many people as possible.
I love that. And what I heard you say is that you're almost like de-escalating
Mm-hmm.
conflict.
Mm-hmm.
You're understanding the issues,
Mm-hmm.
you're building the rapport, you're managing your own
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And when you can find those solutions and you recognize these limits, essentially seek to understand, not to win is about approaching the
Mm-hmm.
difficult interactions with curiosity, with empathy,
Mm-hmm.
rather than aggression and defensiveness,
Or
right?
feeling that you need to go in for the win. I think the other thing I
Right.
want to add is so, and I'm guilty of this because I have some interactions that just came fast to mind and very personal, close ones. Is like sometimes it's also like once you're trading off on the last thing that the person said, you've lost like the whatever you guys came together to discuss has been lost, right? Because
Yes.
and I always say try to stay on point. Like I've learned something a good way to de-escalate tip is just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Like if there's a point that you want to keep the conversation on, just
Mm,
continue to reiterate it. And if the person goes left, reiterate it again and reiterate it again and
yeah.
reiterate it again. And no matter what, like say, I'm here to talk about this. And they'd be like, what did you last week? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm here today to talk about this.
Oh,
Blah, blah,
that's
blah,
great.
blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Keep them on
I'm
track.
here to talk. Yeah, keep them like you stick the point because the minute you start to like follow then you almost lose and so if you recognize that that happens because it's possible, then keep in mind this statement. What are we really trying to discuss today? Or what's
Yes.
really going on here? Or like what's really happening? What do we want to get out of this? Like ask that question to say what do we want to team up and really try to do today together, you know?
I love that. So we're almost at time. So let's
Oh, we're
summarize.
way
So
past
three
time. This is
things. Yeah.
probably the longest
The
podcast
longest.
episode.
Yeah.
It's 26 minutes. And I
Longer than normal. We like
keep
to
hitting
keep
my
it bite
microphone.
sized, but this was important.
It is.
All
It's
right.
really, really good. So let's summarize. So
Yeah.
3 tips. So we say do not take it personally,
That was
right?
number one.
That will keep you in the
Number
driver's
two.
seat of your own emotions.
Yeah.
Set and uphold boundaries. Boundaries are really, really important. And know that no is a full sentence. It is an
Mm,
absolute verb. It's like it's everything
yeah.
to help protect you. And seek to understand versus to win or to be understood, right? Like I
Ah,
think there's really something about being insatiably curious that can really make most conversations very successful.
yeah, I agree. And ultimately, if you implement these tips, you'll be better equipped to navigate these challenging relationships. It can happen. We all know and meet difficult people, but the reality is apply these tips. Apply
Yes.
these tips in your lives. We're here to help you get through it. Comment on this podcast, share your thoughts. We're here to help and we're so grateful that you've listened
And we're grateful that you listen. But sadly, this is where we have to say, I'm Ink,
and I'm Gabby with 1B.
and we're out.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.